Welcome to the Unity BootCamp lesson on custom entities and post-hook cloud code scripting. In this lesson, we're going to create an aggregate leaderboard using a custom entity. Each player will then submit scores on behalf of their country. A cloud code post-hook script will be triggered every time a score is posted to the main leaderboard to update the country leaderboard. An aggregate country leaderboard isn't possible using a standard leaderboard. Fortunately, we can implement the country leaderboard with custom entities. An important note before we continue, custom entities are only available on a brainCloud Plus plan. As a result, this account has been upgraded for this lesson. The new plan has made our app live. As a result, we need to unlock our app before we make any changes. Enter the app name and then click Verify. On the left, click Design, then Cloud Data, followed by Custom Entities. On the right, click the Create button. Enter an entity type name, an identifier, and a data template. Click Create. Click the newly created Country Leaderboard custom entity. Click Custom Indexes. On the right, click the Create button. Give the index a name, and then enter a value for the index. A value of -1 specifies the index will order the elements in descending order. Set the options for the custom index. Click Create. On the left, click Cloud Code, then Scripts. Click the plus button to create a new script. Name the script Post to Leaderboards Post Hook. Ensure that this script is not client callable. Click Create. In the Details pane on the left, click the pencil to edit the parameters. Remove the default parameters and leave them blank. Click Save. To begin editing the script, click the Edit button. In the log debug JSON method, add the text post hook, then click Save. Click the 3 horizontal lines in the top left corner. Under Cloud Code, click API Hooks. An API hook allows you to attach a cloud code script to any brainCloud client API. When creating an API hook, you have the choice between pre and post hooks. Pre-hook scripts are executed before the API call they are hooked into, whereas post-hook scripts are executed after the API call. For this API hook, select the leaderboard service. Then select the post score to leaderboard operation. From the pre-post dropdown list, select post. Finally, from the script dropdown list, select the post to leaderboards post-hook script. Before we save, we have a couple parameters to enter. Click Save. Click Scripts. Then select the post to leaderboard script. Click the debug button on the right. Click the Quick Auth button. This will authenticate us the same way the API Explorer does. Click Execute. This executed the post to leaderboard script and provided the parameters below. It also executed the post hook script, which doesn't do much right now other than log the input data. In the logs, notice that the post hook script ran twice. It's important to see the data that's available to us before we write the post hook script. Let's inspect the first post hook script's input log. The post hook script gets a lot of data. It receives all the data from the post score to leaderboard request, including the leaderboard ID, score, and nickname. This data appears as the calling message object. In this log, we can see that the score was posted to the main leaderboard. There's also the leaderboard ID and collection name parameters that were set up in the API hook. In the second post hook script input log, you'll notice that the data is practically the same as the first one, with one notable difference. The calling message data contains a different leaderboard ID, daily. In the post hook script that we are about to write, we want to ensure that the logic only gets executed once, not twice, so we'll need to check that the leaderboard ID that's passed in is main. Open the post to leaderboards post hook script, then click Edit. Remove the debug log. Then declare a variable for the country code. Write an if statement that compares the calling message's leaderboard ID to the API hook's leaderboard ID parameter. If you recall, the API hook's leaderboard ID parameter is set to main. Get the service proxies for the custom entity service and the player state service. Request the user state from the player state service. If that request was successful, get the user's country code. Then check to see if the country code is defined or not. If the country code is not defined, mark the response success flag to false. There's nothing more we can do without the country code. If the country code is valid, then we need to use it to see if there's a custom entity that already exists for that country code. The request we're going to use is called getEntityPageRequest. In case you're not sure what's needed for a request, we can always check out the API reference. Scroll down to the usage section. You'll notice that the API reference even has code samples to help you build your cloud code scripts. Now that we know the parameters needed for the request, let's head back to the brainCloud portal and finish the script. Declare the entity type, which is the post hook's collection name parameter, and then set up the context parameter. Invoke the custom entity services getEntityPageRequest, passing in the entity type and the context as arguments. Check the response to see if there's a valid custom entity. If there isn't, then one will have to be created. To do that, set up the custom entities data, including the country code and score. Set the ACL to 2, this stands for public read-write access. Declare 2 local variables for time to live and is owned. Make the create entity request, passing in the entity type, the country JSON data, the ACL, the time to live, and the is owned value as arguments. If the request was successful, log the response. In the event that the getEntityPage request returned a valid custom entity, we instead need to invoke the custom entity service's increment data request. First, set up the field's JSON data to set up the score value. Then invoke the custom entity service's increment data request, passing in the entity type, the entity ID, and the field's JSON data as the arguments. If the request was successful, log the response. Set the response success flag to true, then save the script. Click the Post to Leaderboard script. Click the Quick Auth button, then clear the logs, then click Execute. Notice in the logs the post hook script ran. We know this because we can see that the read player state request, the get entity page request, and the create entity request were all made successfully. Click the 3 horizontal lines in the top left corner. Click Cloud Data, then Custom Entities. For the country leaderboard on the right, click the 3 vertical dots, then click Monitor. Click the entity. This page displays the entity's details, including the entity data. We can see that we have 1 score posted for Canada. Let's post some more. On the left, click Design, then Cloud Code followed by API Explorer. In the Parameters section, modify the country code from Canada to US. Click Execute to authenticate. Once authenticated, click Scripts. Select the Post to Leaderboard script. Click Debug. Notice that the session ID from the API Explorer persisted here. Then, without clicking Quick Auth, click Execute. We have now posted a score to the country leaderboard for the US. Click the 3 horizontal lines in the top left corner. Click Cloud Data, then Custom Entities. For the country leaderboard on the right, click the 3 vertical dots, then click Monitor. Notice we have a second entry in the country leaderboard. On the left, click Design, then Cloud Code, followed by Scripts. Select the Post to Leaderboard script. Click Debug. Before clicking Execute, modify the score parameter, just so that it's something different. Click Execute. Our score's been posted. Click the 3 horizontal lines in the top left corner. Click Cloud Data, then Custom Entities. For the country leaderboard on the right, click the 3 vertical dots, then click Monitor. Click the entity with the US identifier. Notice that the US's entity data has 2 scores posted. We are just about done in the brainCloud portal. In a moment, we'll set up the custom leaderboard in the example game. First though, let's look at the request that we'll use to get the entity data in the API Explorer. From the Service drop-down list, select Custom Entity. From the Operations drop-down list, select Get Entity Page. Format the parameters. Click Execute. The data that's returned contains an item array. Each element represents an entity in the country leaderboard. The returned data is also in a sorted state, so the US's entry is first in the items array, followed by Canada's. Let's consult with the API reference to see the C# syntax for the custom entity get entity page request. Compared to previous requests, clicking the JSON response isn't as useful here, since the custom entity data that is returned will depend on the entity data that was set up. In this case, the API Explorer is your best bet to view the data that the request will return. Navigate to Unity so that we can implement the custom country leaderboard. To save time, the leaderboards dialog has been modified. An extra button has been added to the segmented control. Hide the leaderboards dialog. Open Visual Studio and navigate to the leaderboard dialog script. Immediately you'll notice a few changes, including a new method called onCountryScoresClicked. We'll be modifying this method shortly, but first navigate to the constant script. Declare a pair of constants, one for the leaderboard ID and one for the custom entity type. Save the file and navigate to the network script. Scroll down and find the attach email identity method. Below it, declare a public method called requestCountryLeaderboard. Notice that this method takes in the same callback delegates as the requestLeaderboard method. In this method, we're going to parse the custom entity data and create a leaderboard object with that data. As far as our game is concerned, the country leaderboard is a regular old leaderboard, complete with a leaderboard ID. In the body, check to see if the user is authenticated. If the user is not authenticated, log a meaningful error message. And if set, invoke the failed callback delegate. If the user is authenticated, declare success callback lambda. In the body of the lambda, log the response data. Then create a JSON object to parse the custom entity response data. Get the items array from the root JSON object. Declare a list of leaderboard entry objects. After that, declare a few local variables. Loop through each element in the items array. Parse the rank, nickname, and time for the item object. Using the parse data, create and push a new leaderboard entry object onto the list of leaderboard entry objects. Once all the leaderboard entries have been parsed, create a leaderboard object, passing in the country leaderboard ID constant and the list of leaderboard entries as the arguments. If the callback delegate is set, invoke it and pass in the leaderboard object as the argument. Declare failed callback lambda. In the body of the lambda, log an error along with the status message. And if set, invoke the failed callback delegate. Set up the JSON context data. Then invoke brainCloud's custom entity services getEntityPageRequest, passing in the entity type constant, the JSON context, and the success and failure callback lambdas as the arguments. Save the file and navigate to the game script. Scroll down and find the onAuthenticationRequestCompleted method. Invoke the network's requestCountryLeaderboard method, passing in the onLeaderboardRequestCompleted method as the argument. Scroll down and find the onPostScoreRequestCompleted method. Invoke the network's requestCountryLeaderboard method, passing in the onLeaderboardRequestCompleted method as the argument. Save the file and navigate to the leaderboard dialog script. In the onCountryScoresClicked method, replace the statement with the to-do comment and in its place invoke the setLeaderboardData method, passing in the country leaderboard ID constant as the argument. Save the file and then navigate back into Unity. If you need to perform a manual refresh, do so now. Run the game. Click brainCloud, then click Leaderboards. You'll notice that the country leaderboard displays the scores for US and Canada that we posted earlier. Close the dialog and then play the game so we can up Canada's aggregate score. To save time, video playback has been sped up. The game is over and our score has been posted. The post hook script was executed on the server and our score was added to Canada's custom entity entry. Part 1 of combining brainCloud requests via Cloud Code script is the next lesson in the Unity Bootcamp.